Good morning. I'm Ken Lawrence, and I'm here in front of what, oh man, I wish you could smell this. This is really great. We've got Tony Riedel of Hickory Hollow Barbecue, or as I referred to it when I first heard you were coming in, Hickory Holler. Tony, which is the pronunciation that you prefer?
We prefer Hickory Holler. That's
Hickory Holler,
more
right?
in line with what we do.
Okay, where are you located, first of all?
We have a location out on what used to be Fairbanks North Houston Road. It's Fallbrook Drive now, by the Sam Houston Race Park, actually. That's been there since '77, and we have a location in the Heights on Heights Boulevard that's been in place since '87.
Great. Sounds like a wonderful tradition. Well, let's get down to things. What we're going to do is go through some of the most frequently asked questions that you get in relationship to your barbecue. And what are some of the most frequently asked questions?
Well, specifically about brisket, the most frequently asked question is, how do you get it so tender and how do you get it so lean? And we'll work through the steps that cause our brisket to turn out that way.
Let's get to it. How do we start?
Okay. First of all, we start off by using all U.S. choice brisket, and it gives us the day in, day out consistency that we want in our restaurants. Secondly, we buy briskets that are about 10 pounds each, and that's the raw weight. And thirdly, we cook them very, very slowly, no more than 200 degrees, using green hickory preferably, and also oak or pecan is acceptable, but as long as it's green, meaning that it's not too dry so that it'll burn slowly.
Okay, now where could I get green hickory?
From us.
All right, well, you've got a corner on it. A 10-pound brisket, how many people will that serve?
That'll serve approximately 9 to 12 adults if done the way that we're going to demonstrate as we move along here.
Okay, well, we've just got a few seconds left. We'll begin the demonstration when we come back. Okay, we're moving right along with Tony Riedel of Hickory Holler Barbecue, and we're talking about brisket. Tony, tell me, first of all, we were talking about the preparation of how you get your meat so tender and the taste. What do you do before you cook the meat to get it ready?
Actually, we don't use any rubs or any type of seasoning at all. We let the smoke do all the flavoring. And we take our pit, which will accommodate about 1,000 pounds. Of course, we're going to have to work this into your home-style barbecue pit. We put the meat on the rack with the fat side up. We build a small fire, as I said, that'll maintain a temperature of somewhere between 175 and 200 degrees. And we let ours cook somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 to 24 hours at that slow temperature. And while that's happening, the juices from the fat are seeping into the meat, and that's acting as a tenderizer and a flavoring additive in itself, with no help from any salts or peppers or anything like that.
Great. Okay, well, we've slow cooked it for as long as it takes. So what do we do next?
Okay. Next,
I've been dying for this part.
you'll end up with something that looks like this, that'll be a little bit darker in color. And obviously it looks like it's been well cooked, but it also has an awful lot of fat on it, as we all know. So what I'll do next is take and split this piece into its two inherent muscles.
Oh, we've got about 30 seconds, so
Okay.
keep right on going.
All right. We take our knife and begin along this edge, and we're going to work our way between the two pieces along a membrane.
Okay.
As we move along, just feeling with the blade the tenderness as you're going. The more tender it is, you know you're in the fat seam, and that's where you want to be.
Okay. For those of you who are following along at home, work on your own briskets. We'll be back to show you what the next step is in just a moment. Meanwhile, go to the phone and give us a call. Pledge your membership. While you're dialing, we've got some beautiful looking stuff going for you. Okay, we've cut along the fat seam that separates the two primary pieces of the brisket. What's the next step in preparation on this?
Okay, we'll set aside the piece that was on the top and begin to trim the fat off of the lower piece, which in fact is the lean part that has the really nice part of the brisket in there.
Okay, now before you, as you're doing it, the part that you set aside, now we're going to get back to that. Is
That's
that right?
correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
This is just the best part here.
Exactly.
Wonderful.
And we'll work our way along and continue trimming all of this stuff on here that none of us should be eating or should like to eat, really. And we'll end up, for time's sake, with a piece that I have over here. Voila. If I had continued working on this one, we'd end up with a totally lean piece of brisket like this.
Okay.
Now, this is what separates us from most other barbecue houses in the fact that we serve only this lean part as our sliced beef. There are very few other restaurants, if any, in the Houston area anyway, that do that. So when you get a barbecue sandwich from us or a sliced beef sandwich, it's going to be totally lean, no fat at all.
That has a lot to do with both the flavor and the tenderness.
That's correct.
And makes it acceptable to eat even more, I would imagine. Okay, well, what's the next step once you've got it to this?
Okay, the next step to making sure that that you can present the most tender piece of meat that this will allow you to have is to slice perpendicularly to this grain that's moving along here. So that means we want to cut across the grain, in this case, like this. And that's whether you're slicing brisket or fillets or New York strips or ribeyes or any kind of meat, okay. Slice against the grain.
Well, why don't you slice us off a few pieces there, and we'll be right back to talk more about it. Now, I know it's a beautiful day out. It's a beautiful day for getting a barbecue started. According to what I'm hearing right now from Tony Riedel of Hickory Hollow Barbecue, today is a good day to start your preparation for getting this done. Buy yourself that 10-pound brisket, run out to Hickory Hollow and get a barbecue sandwich, and while you're at it, pick up some green hickory for smoking, and get everything set up so you can get an early start to have this wonderful brisket tomorrow. Okay, Tony, let's go forward. You're slicing off some now. Oh, man, that looks beautiful.
Well, as you can see, the meat has absolutely no fat at all in it or on it. It's very lean. We'd continue slicing down. Now, the grain will change directions as we're slicing, so you want to pay attention to how you're slicing so you maintain the pattern of cutting across the grain. We'd work our way all the way across, and as I say, by the time we're finished, we'll have enough lean brisket to serve between 9 and a dozen people, and those are all adults, and probably have a little bit left for the dog as well. Now, so
I know the people that adopt a cat are probably very happy to hear that.
I should have said cat. We'll go back to this one. This is the part that has most of the fat in it and on it, and we use this only for our chopped beef products. Now, there's another trick to this one too. We're going to strip all the surface fat off of this, and then we'll get it ready to serve.
Okay, well, we don't have enough time to get started on that. Keep it right here. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes to finish up with the top half of the brisket. Give us a call. Thank you, Patty. And while we're talking superlatives, we'll get right down to one of the best cuisines available in Houston, and that is barbecue. We're here with Tony Riedel of Hickory Hollow Barbecue, telling us all about how to prepare and serve brisket. In the last break, we went through the bottom half of the brisket, which is the sliced brisket portion. Right now we're going to talk about how to prepare the top half of the brisket for the chopped barbecue. Take it away, Tony.
Okay. Where we left off, this whole layer, our whole piece was covered in fat. During the break, I trimmed all the fat off, or most of the fat, so we end up with a relatively lean piece, but not lean at all relative to the sliced brisket part. You can see there's still a lot of internal fat here. The next step that we follow is that we slice, dice, chip, whatever word you want to use, but break this in, or shred, get it down to a texture that's more like this. Let me put some on a spoon, perhaps. You'll be able to see. We've added a little bit of barbecue sauce there to bind it together. Then we put it in a pan and slide it in an oven at about 325 or 350 degrees. Cover it with foil and just let it simmer, in a sense. And what we're doing there is breaking down the internal fat that's part of the meat. You can see when I slice this, we'll see that there's a lot of fat still in the meat. What we're going to be doing now is breaking all of that out. Even though we chopped it, it's still there.
Okay, well, let's get started getting some of this chopped up, and we'll come back in just a minute to talk more about how you're preparing it for serving.
Great.
Okay, we're here with Tony Riedel of Hickory Hollow Restaurants, and he's doing what he calls a little Benihana action on the top half of the brisket now to get it down to the consistency that we need for the chopped brisket, for the chopped barbecue sandwich, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Tony, tell me a little bit more. You mentioned putting some barbecue sauce in with the chopped brisket in preparation. Tell me a little bit more about your sauce.
Well, we make our own sauce. It's basically a ketchup and tomato puree base, to which we add things like brown sugar and waffle syrup, Worcestershire sauce, a little salt, very little salt, some regular black pepper, etc., etc., and come up with what we call a thick Texas red sauce. It's not too spicy for the kids, but it's got a little bit of zest for us adults.
Okay. Well, now you've mixed this together. What kind of a pan would we use at home to bake this up, to render it down, or what do you call that?
Okay, it'd be better to use a shallow pan so that it'll heat more thoroughly throughout. But to say any pan will really do. But the trick then is to start to spoon out the oils as they rise to the top and cast those aside, and you'll end up with a fat mixture that's very lean.
Okay. Next time around, we're going to serve some of this up, so stay with us. Meanwhile, give us a call. You've got about a minute to do that before we come back. Okay, keep those phones ringing. You're going to love this. We're getting down to the meat of the matter now, if you'll pardon the pun. Tony, show us how you serve and prepare these things for consumption.
Okay. Well, the sliced brisket is pretty much of the no-brainer in that you've ended up with beautifully lean sliced beef. It'll be presented as simply as putting it on the plate. Notice the real deep, rich colors that we've gotten from our smoke.
Oh, that is beautiful.
Laced with a little bit of our barbecue sauce.
Where should I walk to get in front of you?
Okay, and then the usual accompaniments, the potato salad and coleslaw.
That's
I see.
correct.
Yeah, okay. The chopped brisket. How do you serve that up?
We do an unusual thing, we think, is we take a flour tortilla. We put the traditional lettuce and tomato that's been diced, some cheese, sour cream, some refried beans, and make a base in the tortilla, and then top that off with the chopped beef, roll it up, and make a chopped beef burrito.
Oh, I'll have to try one of those. You've got the usual. Let me ask you about the jalapenos. What do you hear from your customers? Are these hot? Are these mild?
These are hot, and they're real crispy.
All right. That sounds good to me too. One quick thing about the chopped brisket. How long does it take to get it to the consistency that you like?
We generally let it sit about an hour.
Okay, great. We'll be back to wrap this up in just a minute. Okay, Tony, let's wrap this up. You just started something that looks great to me. Tell me what we've got here.
It's a Texas-sized baked potato that we would traditionally stuff with margarine, cheddar cheese, sour cream, real bacon, and green onions, and then top it all off with this deliciously lean chopped beef.
Oh,
Yeah, meal and appeal.
sounds wonderful. I'll see you here after the break. Well, let's run through what we did once again, just sort of to recap for everybody. Number one, just to show you that I learned my lesson, the flavor's in the smoke.
That's correct.
You don't use the rubs. And the second thing is that you trim the meat before you cut it, particularly the sliced brisket part for extra
That's right.
lean and tender. Well, tell us some more.
Well, also, the one point I missed is when you go to split those two pieces, you want to watch the color of the juices. If the juices are running clear, you know your brisket's done. If it's got any red in it at all in the juice, you'll know it needs to stay on the pit a little bit longer till the juices run clear.
With 20 hours on the pit, that could mean 24. I don't know. Then it's tips on how to keep your guests under control. While you
That's
say,
correct.
It'll be ready in just an hour or two, I promise. Great Super Bowl stuff. Well, Tony, we really appreciate you and Hickory Hollow for all your support of public television through the years, and certainly for being here today and sharing your secrets with us. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And best of luck to you.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.